Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Silverlake Priestess Podcast. I'm Jaime Black. I'm here today with Katie Henry, and we are going to talk about freeing the voice. So, welcome, everybody out there. This is a podcast where we talk about our spirituality, our spiritual practices, and then how that integrates or how that shows up in the way that we live our life, how we serve our sacred purpose, how we create business around serving our sacred purpose. So all of those are like really important things to me. And so if you follow me on social or if you've been watching the podcast lately, you've been hearing me talk about the voice. You've been hearing me talk about my personal experience of going back to school as a musician and really learning how to use all of my instruments, right? And so voice has been a really big part of this for me. So a couple weeks ago, we talked about like finding our voice. And I had another singer friend on the show, Molly Durand. And so, we really got to start talking about the voice. But something that Katie and I share in common is basically some shame around using our voice. And so it's not just us that have had this experience, and it's not just women that have had this experience, but Katie and I come from the priestessing world. We're definitely going to talk about women and over time how women, haven't been able to use their voice and how they used to get their tongues cut out back in the day for using their voice. And so we're not just talking about singing, but our main, thing that we want to talk about here is our voice and freeing it and being wild with it and everything. So welcome, Katie. I'm really excited to have you here.
Yes, thank you, sister. I am so excited to be here and to have this conversation because it is something I am so passionate about.
And like lately, Katie has just been like, it's just been coming out of her. She's just being a wild woman, really using her voice and really talking about like her personal experiences with all of this. And so anyway, it's just been exciting to watch because Katie and I met at a red tent priestess activation ceremony led by Laura Carmody, who we've had on the show. That's where I met Grail. That's where I met Allie from Modern Goddess Lifestyle.
All amazing.
Just really like had, a bunch. It was amazing. It was amazing and it was super powerful. And so like right when we got there, there was time to set up your tent and all that stuff. But like all of a sudden when it was like time to get together and none of us knew each other, we all got together, we got in circle, we began this whole powerful ritualistic transformational experience that we were going to have with each other for the next 4 days. But we went right into snake dancing with snakes, getting naked. Like I literally ended up with all of my clothes off, not only dancing in front of people that I don't know, like me and like, 2 others, just like totally vulnerable. Then I was naked. Then I'm holding on to this snake. And that was like the beginning of the experience. And so what was really cool about that is like we were just open. We were just very open and like naked, like with each other and for the rest of this experience to happen. And so that called on all of these other like really revealing and exposing type of experiences to happen. So that's where we met. And so anyway, we'll get into talking, but some more about that. But I really love to talk to people about when they first knew that they were a priestess, like when they first felt that calling, or when did you really like identify with the witch? When did that start? And we'll get into talking about the voice.
Yeah. So it's very interesting because that was definitely the first calling that I had, and the voice came later, several years later, after I first heard the call of priestess, call of the goddess. And so when I was 24, I got really sick. My body started breaking down with a pretty severe autoimmune mystery illness. And I was suddenly on this spiritual path, trying to figure out myself. and at the time I was in the Bay Area in California. So I was just going to like any spiritual thing I could go to. I was like, just get me to a shamanic circle, just get me to this meditation group. I was just experimenting. And then I was opening up, and out of the blue one day, I wish I had maybe a better story about this, but I just was like, you know what? I'm going to Google the word goddess, because I feel that word, I saw it somewhere, like I saw it in a magazine, or I just decided to Google it. I literally just Googled the word goddess one day, and I came across this magazine, which isn't running anymore, but this amazing woman had compiled this blog of all these different women who were, witches, priestesses, coaches, healers, doing this work. And it opened up to me. It opened up in this crazy way. And it was just this rabbit hole that I just kept falling down farther and farther. And I looked in a good way, not in a bad way. Like I started looking at women's circles. I started to really get into that word priestess. I kept seeing that, and I started to look up, what does that mean? Priestess trainings. I started to read books about the divine feminine and the goddess. And I came to this conclusion, oh my gosh, my body has broken down because I completely ignored my divine femininity. I was living much in like a patriarchal masculine way, not honoring my emotions, not honoring my sexuality or my cycles. And so, yeah, so that's what initiated me into that world. A Google search.
Well, it's just one of the tools, it's just one of the tools that we have nowadays. Like you might have, gone to a library or something like that before, but it's interesting that you say that happened like before the vocal stuff for you. I definitely was singing and was a singer like at a very young age. But it was after I got into my spiritual practice. And it was like after I was really identifying as a witch, like in my 20s, somewhere there. And it was like I was using the music and my voice as part of like ritual practice and part of this connecting with spirit, and also trying to put my energy out there in that way and like call the people in. I mean, I was trying to call in, musicians to play in my band, but that's what I was doing, is I was like, reaching out. And so it kind of like weaved together like that. And that's like how it came out of me. What about the singing then?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think we have similar paths for sure, because I also did a lot of singing at a young age. I am a minister's daughter, and so I was in church singing all the time. My dad has a beautiful voice, and he writes songs, so I heard my dad's voice all the time throughout my house, playing guitar. My house was filled with music. My mom sung in choir. My sister sings too. So we were like, song was such a part of our lives. And I started trying out for musicals and theater, and I got these lead roles, like without even trying. When I was younger, I was a great actress. I was a great singer. And then I shut down my voice when I started to enter. I mean, I kept singing in high school and college a little bit, but I actually was kicked out of an a cappella group. So they decided, basically in a nutshell, they wanted somebody else over me. And so that happened in college, and that's when I really shut down my voice and was like, well, I'm not a good singer, I'm not good at this. And then I went on this whole journey, and my body broke down. And then I went on this spiritual journey, and a couple years into my spiritual journey, I was feeling very lost again. I had started a business, and that had not worked out. And I started doing deep work around my sexuality and healing at that time, because I kept hearing how a woman's creativity is connected to her body and her sexuality. And so as I did work around my body and my sexuality and really reconnected with it in this organic, wild, authentic way, like dancing with snakes at that retreat, I started to sing again. And it seriously, when I saw you sing, that was one of the first times like a spark lit up in me. And from that moment, there was this shift in me that knew I had to start singing again. And so I did. And when I sat down and I put pen to paper, songs would come to me. And it's been this, and then all of a sudden, like some money came to me, some funds came to me for going back to school and studying the voice and music theory and piano and really following that path. And so it was such a interesting progression of like, once I got in touch with my body and my sexuality, then my voice, the path of my voice started to become more clear and started to open up.
That's it. That's interesting. So Katie and I really didn't connect. I mean, I don't remember, but what I do really remember was when we really connected was like at the end. We were standing at the fire at the end of our 4 days there. And so we were doing, it was around the new moon. So we were doing a ritual where we had a fire, and there was something that we wanted to let go of, and something that was holding us back, something that was, when you do these kinds of things, it's like, okay, what's something you want to let go of that's not serving you? And it can be any number of things, but you always know what that is. So what is something maybe that you're afraid of, or you're letting go of fear, or you're letting go of like stagnancy, or you're letting go of judgment, or you're letting go of anger, or you're letting go of that job or that lover or that apartment. It's just and so when you have this experience of like doing it in ritual, even if you're just kind of like not brave enough or whatever, it's just like, you're like, this is the thing that I am offering up to the fire or to the goddess or whatever. You're like, this is this thing that I'm holding on to. It's hurting me. It's not helping me. And so I want to like give it up as an offering and like be brave enough to like let it go and like put words to it. And so I decided this is what happens to me. So, even though like I finally got to a point where I'm like singing in front of people, I didn't start singing in front of anyone, like except for my mom, until I was almost 30. And I always really wanted to sing, and I really wanted to write songs. And I just felt like I'm not like a front person. I'm not a front woman for like a band. It's not a show. I can't sing somebody else's music. Something in me was like, it has to be authentic, has to be real coming from you. And so if you're going to like use any of this, it has to, and everybody has like a different path. Like somebody else like might totally be like the show person, the front person, and that's a different experience. But just for me, it had to be real words, real story, like real honesty that was coming from me. Mm-hmm. So even though I'd had all this music in my life, I didn't write songs. Like I didn't write them. I didn't know how to like construct anything. I, played my guitar a little bit, but I just didn't know how to write songs. And then all of a sudden they started coming out of me. And still to this day, I don't really sit down and construct. Like I just have to be open channel and like they come through me. So all of that being said, there was still a lot of like hiding for me, and a lot of humiliation and embarrassment when I would be singing in front of people. And I think even less than it was maybe about like my voice, it was just more about not allowing myself to sing, not allowing myself to say this is something that I want to do. For some reason, I was like shaming myself and saying that it was like superficial, or it was, I don't, there's like just like a whole other conversation like around all of that. But it was, so as I was performing and singing, I was still like hiding in some way. In fact, like when I first started performing, I was way into my witchy stuff. I was dyeing my hair all black, and I was wearing, as I still do, but like hoods. And so everything was like very witchy. And so I was kind of totally cloaked when I would perform. And then I like to use a lot of effects on my vocals. And so I could do this like performance and like just kind of put this, vibe out there and everything. But people, when they would meet me, or when I'd end up in a group, whether if it was like a priestess training, or it was like some other type of like self-growth seminar that I was in for 3 days, nobody would ever know what it was that I did outside of that room. Like nobody ever like experienced me singing or whatever. So here I am in this priestess training with like all these girls and everybody's singing, and I won't just like naturally sing. If people in the room, I won't just sing. I'm not the person that like picks up the guitar, picks up the drum and just starts singing. And so I'm like, okay, I just need to do this. And I think I got totally naked because I also don't like to be naked in front of people. So I was totally naked, had my drum, didn't have like any of my effects. Nobody knew that I wrote like any of these pretty songs. And I'm like, I'm just gonna like put this out there in front of these people. I'm going to sing in front of all these people with like out reverb. I'm going to, nobody's hearing my recordings. Like I'm just going to be like raw, naked. And I was shaking and it was totally just like uncomfortable and embarrassing and everything. But after that, that's when Katie and I were talking at the fire, and she was like, just like really spoke to me and kind of talking about some of the fears and little resistances that she has like within her own self. She's like, I'm going to start performing. Like I'm going to start, doing this and doing that. And I, of course, am just like, you just have to just start doing it. Like it's never easy. You're never ready. You just have to like throw yourself out into doing it. And I think that's one of the things, like if we can just be comfortable with being uncomfortable, know that like brave people aren't brave because they've like figured it out and it's comfortable for them. Brave people are just like, I'm throwing myself into this experience because I want to have it. Mm-hmm. And you started doing that. Like you started doing that. And then like, now we're here. So that also just been like, really exciting to watch. And you also just will go live and like, just start, singing these pieces and just these words, and it feels very raw and it feels very vulnerable. And that in itself, I mean, I know that like it's Wyld Woman Voices. We'll get into this. This is like kind of the name of what she calls, what it is that she does. But that's activating like that. There's something about it being raw and it being vulnerable. It's not about it being pretty and polished. And it's not that those parts don't come along with it too. Sometimes, but it's just about this like being raw and just letting your energy out, and that being that what is guiding you, or that what you're following.
Absolutely. I mean, I think about, because I remember that moment so clearly, when you stood up to sing, because that was a really powerful moment for me as well. And I think what touched me so deeply was that moment was so raw for you. And you were so vulnerable about saying, that you have still had shame and, fear around your voice, even though you are a professional musician. And at that point, when I met you, you were performing and like doing all this stuff. I didn't even really know that about you until you sang. And then I'm like, holy crap, she has all this like shame and fear on her voice. And she's like a professional musician and doing this still. And so, okay, like I have all this shame and fear around my voice still, but I'm not doing anything. So that kind of gave me the courage to be like, okay, well, I just have to start now, and that is the voice healing, right? Because so much gets stuck here. And so sometimes it's singing, sometimes it's sounding, sometimes it's movement, but we get so caught up in our voices sounding pretty or perfect, or especially for singers, we get caught up in so much perfection around that, when what really connects with our audience, I mean, when you think about the shows that have mattered the most to you, the concerts, like the women, it's not necessarily their perfect pitch or their, whatever, their technique. It's if they can connect and if they're raw and they bring their authentic self through their voice, their wildness, their own unique wildness. And so that's what I try to do. And that's the work that I do with women.
Well, you're totally doing it. It's totally inspiring and it's activating, because so we live in this culture where it's also this like, everything is polished and filters, whether it's on the voice or whether it's on the image, and like everything has to be like pretty. And I think that was the thing too, is like when I had just started, I just like had only had a couple songs, and then a friend of mine who had these like music night every week where all the local musicians would come and perform. And she was like, you should come and perform. I was just like so grateful that I had written a song. It was totally humiliating for me. My kneecaps were shaking when I was like trying to perform and my eyes were closed. But, I really just like, wanted to have the experience. And because I had no idea if I was going to write any more songs, there wasn't any part of me that could grab onto it because it wasn't like somebody else's project and I was able to step into this thing and I could be this role and be this, it wasn't like that. I was just like, man, I don't even ever know if I'm going to ever write another song again. So I only have 2 and like now I have 3 and it would just kind of go like that. So I felt really, I don't know, kind of just like that imposter syndrome too, where I'm like, well, I can't just all of a sudden like be saying that like I want to be a singer now. Like I have only written 3 songs or like I've only played, this many shows and like all these other people, like they've been doing it for a long time. We have this idea that everything needs to be perfect and everything needs to be pretty and everything needs to be on key and everything because we're listening to that stuff on the radio. Like we're trained to, listen for something specific. And even my favorite recordings of my stuff are of either live shows or some kind of like practice where it's not perfect. And I would make recordings of these and give them to people all the time. And there were certain people that would be into it. And then other people, they just don't get it. Like it wasn't until I had professional recordings with all this perfectness done to everything that people actually start to really hear my music. And so that makes it hard for us because then it's like, well, are you trying to be a professional singer? Because it's like not okay for you to sing and experience your voice if you're not. And so that's like I have friends too. Maybe sometimes I want them to sing. Them like, well, I'm not a singer, but we are all singers. Like we are the spirit inside of this body. This body is also an instrument.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the sounds that come out of our body actually heal our body first. And then it's meant for somebody else. But there's actually something in the vibration, like you and I, we could have the same sound, but that would just like be by chance. Like your go-to like sound that you would like resonate out of your body first is going to maybe be different than mine. We do it in our speaking. Like we all do it in our speaking. There's like a sound of my voice. And so we all have that and it's all meant for healing and also the experience and the freedom.
Absolutely. I mean, that is one of my biggest messages that I talk about because I think singing, one, it's helped me heal my body. And there's so much scientific research on this, like what singing does for the body, how it gets oxytocin flowing. It's very healing to the vagus nerve in our bodies, which is like what regulates our whole autonomic nervous system, our flight, freeze response. And singing, when you think about it, it was such a natural part of everyday life in tribal culture and cultures, if you go back, especially like witches and priestesses and women that held spaces and sang and used the instrument of our bodies as this vessel of to make sound and to create that healing through themselves and then for others. And when you think about when you write songs, right, you're writing them generally because you're processing something and and the best way, I too, I don't really sit down and construct songs. I'm an open channel and they just kind of flow through me, but it's usually because I'm processing something, I'm trying to work through something. And first and foremost, it's for me. And then if somebody else can hear it and resonate with it, that's great. But I think there is such a thing. I had a lot of shame coming back to singing because it was like, it was like 3 or 4 years ago when I met you. So I was in my later 20s and I'm 31 now. And I was like, oh, I'm 28. I'm basically like I'm supposed to have everything figured out, right? I'm supposed to have my career. How could I sing? How could that be a desire of mine to become a professional musician? I'm 28. I sang a lot when I was younger, but I had no like official training. And we have such a messed up paradigm that, yeah, singing is only for famous people. You had to have started it when you were 5 and taken professional voice lessons, and you have to be amazing at it. And we actually, that's not so unhealthy, right? It's such a natural, wonderful instrument that everyone has access to, whether you want to make it a big part of your career or not. I think women are drawn to me, either they have no singing background at all, or this like desire kind of comes in maybe a little bit later in life, or even later into like later 20s or something. And it's like getting through that shame of like, oh, can I even tend this desire that I want to make this a big part of my life? That's how I felt. That's how sometimes I still feel.
It's weird. It's not part of our culture. Like, we don't learn how to use the voice. So first of all, we all have a voice and we're already using it. Like, right? Nobody really has to teach you how to use the voice. But just like you can learn a healthy way of eating, or you can learn a healthy way to like lift that weight to build that muscle, or, you can learn healthy ways to run. Like, nobody needs to teach us how to run. We all can just like run, but you can learn healthy ways to run. You can learn ways to run faster, and like how to really like utilize the body to run, whether you're trying to run long distance or speed or, whatever. And that is the same thing in the voice. And so I'm learning now, all these years later, I'm learning how to use my voice. Things that like I absolutely never ever knew. And so like that's what's really fun for, us both, like going back and getting instruction around it. It's like we're really learning how to use the instrument. We're really learning how to use it as a tool and strengthen it and strengthen those muscles and learn how to breathe. So there is a lot of that. There is a lot of that I feel like, to anyone that is wanting to do anything and you feel like you could use instruction, just go get some. Go get some, take a class, hire a coach, like just do it. Like, the desire is here in this lifetime for a reason. It's your signal to go in that direction. And so, not everybody wants to sing. And so it doesn't even matter to them. But if you want to at all, even if you just want to sing better for yourself in the shower or the car, like, there's like a thing to learn. Some people have perfect pitch, and I think that's because they've worked with the voice already before in the past life. And so they're just kind of with everything. I feel like wherever you're at, whatever level of like mastery or not yet mastery with something, wherever you are, it's where you left off. And so there's always more for us there's always more refinement, there's always more learning. And some people, they're like, oh, I'm tone deaf and I can't hear, but you can learn. You can actually learn. You can train your ears. I'm training my ears right now, some stuff that is like just absolutely insane. And I'm like, I know that over time, like, I'm going to get it. So like, I'm able to just go through stuff, but I'm just like, I can't hear that. That doesn't, make any sense to me. But this machine here also is trainable. It's also programmable, right? So there's all kinds of other entities and beings and people with other agendas program your body, right? They program us with TV and commercials and advertisements and all of that stuff. So it's programmable. Like, you can teach your body how to sing. You can teach yourself to be able to like hear pitch. And anything else you want to do, honestly.
Absolutely. I think it was so strange when I mean, even before I felt the deep call to sing and use my voice, more professionally or as part of my work in the world, when I would watch musicians perform in anything, in plays or concerts, even at church, I would think like it was this far off, crazy thing, right? Like, whoa, to be able to get to that point, how do they do that? Like, whoa, I could never do that. I could never like do that, because holy crap, how do you like become a musician and all that? And like, it's actually very simple. You take one step at a time. I mean, it's not simple, it's complicated, but you take the first step, just like anything, and you go get help, go get some, you're like, okay, I want to like be a singer, work on my voice. Okay, I'm going to take voice lessons. And just like anything, okay, I want to like do that. I'm going to go back to school for that. And I think music and musicians, it seemed like otherworldly or something, seemed like not as attainable as becoming a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, when in reality, like, it's kind of the same steps. Like, you go and you learn, right? Like, we both have gone back to school and learning that. I've been taking, been under instruction of a lady who she had a career as an opera singer, so she had so much training throughout her life, and now she's able to impart it to me. But it takes time. It takes time, and you build on it slowly. But you can train your voice. It's not something that is only for a few people. It's for everyone. And so if it's a desire of yours, you can go and learn how to sing, learn how to use your voice. And maybe you find that it's something like that you want to do more professionally or teach, or maybe it's this amazing tool, like you were saying, we're all singers, that you use to heal yourself, to express yourself, that you bring into your business or your messages for the world, or you find power in yourself. It's such a natural thing. And if you cut yourself off from singing, then you're cutting off a huge part of your throat chakra and your body. I truly believe if someone is not open to singing, just kind of, I mean, it's not the end all be all, but it's a huge part of life that you can be missing out on,
Yeah. Our voice is like this, right? And so we can each we can intone together. We can just do it on our own. But everybody loves these. Everybody has a response to this. Because why? Because your body responds to this. Well, when you sing and you are vibrating, this is inside of you, and you are doing this to your whole body. And when other people hear you, you're then doing it to them. Mm-hmm. I would love to hear about how did things start to change for you when you started to get lessons? So was your shame around feeling like you didn't know how to do it right? I mean, really coming from this experience of these people saying, no, you're not good. That was the message anyway, regardless of what they said to you exactly. That was the message that you took, is I don't know how to sing. I'm not good. It doesn't sound good. So then therefore, I'm going to stop so that I can protect myself from, ever experiencing that kind of pain again, because this is obviously something that matters to you, you care about it. Mm-hmm. So what started to happen? What was it that happened for you when you started to get some training, or when you started singing?
Yeah, when I started singing again, first of all, it felt pretty joyful at first. Actually, I was just so excited to be able to start again. And my teacher held me in such a nice container in her house. And it was kind of like I was just doing it for fun again. And it was kind of more like a year into getting lessons that I started to confront a lot of shame, a lot of self-doubt. Sometimes I would even perform and I would get feedback that was like, oh, you were great, you did so well. And I just felt like shit inside. I would deal with this whole storm of things, and I would watch videos of myself at a performance and think, oh my God, I didn't get that thing right, or my vibrato was off there. And it was like this total mind fuck that I went through at a certain point. So at the beginning, there were kind of two things. I think one, I started to realize there was all this joy and this confidence and this realization, oh my gosh, I'm training my voice. This is great. And then about a year in, once I had a lot of knowledge about technique and things like that, then I started to confront kind of some of my demons from earlier. And that's something, I mean, we all go through phases. I don't think, like you're saying, I don't think it's necessarily like I'll get to this point where it's like every single performance or every single time I sing, I'm like, yes, this is awesome. I totally know what I'm doing. I think we can get better at it. But there is always like something like a little fear, or maybe your voice just doesn't sound quite good to you one day or whatever. And you have to just kind of learn how to work through that. So I think the shift was, one, realizing, wow, I have an instrument, I'm training it. This is amazing. I can sing. What people were saying was like not true, or maybe I just like needed some more training with my voice, and I'm getting that now and gaining my confidence. And then kind of moving through a shift of like, again, dealing with shame around my voice, shame around how it sounded, and shame that I was pursuing music as a big part of my career. I think that that's something that I still deal with, of wanting to bring that to the world in a big way. Am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed to have that desire to want to share my voice? Is it worth hearing? Are my songs worth hearing? So, yeah.
I totally get that. It wasn't until I started performing that I really started to have all the like self-judgment, self-hatred, or just realizing that it was under there, right? Because I've always felt like I was, pretty like healthy with accepting myself and self-confidence and all of that. And it wasn't until I started singing, and it might just be because it was important to me in the way that it, that is important to me. But man, I wouldn't even wait till after the show to start beating myself up. I was just beating myself up like, here we get going, and then that's what's happening now. Like, I'm starting to not be present for the singing because I'm just like beating myself up about it, and then I'm having insecurity about, my song, or man, there's so much pressure, and it's not, it does come from culture, it does come from our society, it does come from everything needing to like be perfect. And so everyone that is judging everyone else, it's just like this whole cycle of, then how are you ever going to be able to be free if you are not like allowing others to, but we all want it all to be perfect, right? Because it's like, well, you're performing and you're in front of me and you've made this decision that like you're a singer, so you're the one that like needs to have it figured out. I think for me, when I started studying the voice or started participating in it, I was actually able to be like, okay, this is my instrument. Like, it's not me, it's my instrument. This is the body, this is the instrument that I'm working with. And so the more that I started to do exercises, the more that I started to try to work muscles. And when I very, very first started any type of voice lessons, is because I was having a vocal injury and I was using my voice incorrectly, and I got blisters on my vocal cords, and they wanted to laser them off. And I knew that wasn't the answer for me. So I just went silent, and I stopped talking, I stopped working, and stopped like being able to use my voice and communicate. And that was a whole other like very spiritual experience I got to go into, just kind of like being silent and going internal and all of that. But that was the first time that I got any kind of lessons. And I'd been in a choir before, but didn't really have to sing by myself, like in front of people. So just singing in front of the voice coach initially was totally embarrassing. It was totally embarrassing. It was totally humiliating. It was totally humiliating to not have it sound perfect. And like, even only now am I finally like working on my intonation, because I just kind of never like allowed myself. Another thing I'm experiencing too is, because I live in apartments and things like that, when I first started writing songs, I was always trying to be really quiet. And so I developed my singing voice for my own songs to like being really quiet and really breathy. And anyway, that's not been like the healthiest for my voice, for me to like have all this like breathiness around it. I've been having to learn how to like focus the breath and not waste it, and all of that. But that, me singing that way, because okay, I didn't know I was going to write songs like the way that I write songs. I didn't listen to music that is music like music that I write. I listened to metal, different kinds, from like hair metal to like metal. I wanted to scream with my voice. I even used to listen to country because like kind of more like pop country. I liked to expand my voice in that way and like use my vibrato and like sing in this very big voice, and then I always do all that stuff in my car. But when I started writing my own music, and especially it was because it was coming from spiritual practice, or it was, you know, coming from within, I started maybe only singing that way. But then it was also quiet, and it needed to be ethereal, and it needed to be pretty, and all of these things. So even within that, I didn't like allow myself to experience my voice. It wasn't free. I started to trap my voice more than I had ever trapped my voice. So what's happening for me in my training now is like, well, I'm singing songs that are not my own. And that's been really freeing to me. I'm singing songs that I may or may not like the song, and I'm singing styles that are totally not my style. And it's great because I'm in school with a bunch of other musicians that are doing the same thing, and it's like nobody in my life is seeing any of that unless I want to show it to them. But it's an amazing experience too, to just be able to surrender to all of that and be like, it can just sound horrible. It can just be, you know, just horrible. And that, like that, and that's a freedom, just, you know, allowing ourselves to have that experience. And I have found that when I started being in circle with women a lot, I found that to be a place where I could let go. And that's why I was holding circles for so long with women, because I found it to be a really safe place to just let it all out, whether it was pretty, whether it was ugly, whether if it was nice, whether if it was acceptable, whatever. And so we would all go around the circle and we would all share just all the things that needed to come out. And so that, you know, something that got to happen in that circle, where I was just like, these are the things that I am like the most embarrassed about. Like I'm uncomfortable to be naked. I'm uncomfortable to like hang out with people or stand here and like not have clothes on, because then what? Like you're seeing me. Like I'm uncomfortable to sing something that maybe like isn't very pretty, or let you hear what like my real voice sounds like, because then you're going to have like a different idea of maybe who I am. So I see what you're doing as being very brave, because you are just, I mean, a switch probably happened for you at some point where you're like, I'm brave enough to do this, or I'm choosing to be brave enough to do this. But, you know, there's no accompaniment, there's no instrument. That's another thing too, is I've been singing in these classes with, I've never, ever, ever sang without a guitar in front of me, or a drum in front of me, or a microphone with effects in front of me. And so that was a thing too, to sing in front of all of you with like out anything that was making my voice pretty. But that's what's been happening in my classes too, is I'm just like, I don't have anything to like protect myself with. And so anyway, I just see you as just being like this, like free, and this just like ferocious, like wild energy. And you're like, I'm here and I am present, and like these are my words, and this is my sound, and this is my energy, and like, yes. And so
yes, that makes me so happy that I'm communicating that.
yeah, you're totally communicating that.
Yeah.
So Katie is now like coaching women to do this. She is, tell us about that. Tell us how you are offering this type of work for women, how you're working with people. How is it going?
Yeah. So my business, Wyld Woman Voices, is really kind of about all that we talked about really working with women around these organic issues, around freeing the voice, getting back in touch with their body, dealing with the shame that's coming up around voice and needing to feel perfect or fit into a box or certain things with their voice. So yeah, I work with women that want to, like, either they're feeling they're a musician and they haven't had a lot of vocal training, or they're just feeling this desire to really strengthen the voice, because sometimes that's kind of the last thing that gets left out of working on a music career. And then also some women that have like never sung before, and it's just been this deep desire in them to start singing, and it's like a natural impulse of the body. So if you're feeling that desire to sing, like that is your literally like your natural impulse of your body trying to do something, trying to free something. Just like how maybe you start dancing when music comes on, sometimes you feel this urge to start singing. Your body's trying to heal itself, your voice is trying to heal itself. So yeah, that's what I do. I work with women around kind of, and I use a technique of, I use classical vocal training and then music theory and songwriting and kind of that background, but really combined with a lot of these like priestess, rewilding rituals, and breaking through these fear of like this fear that we're not allowed to be heard, that our wildness is not accepted, that our wildness is not allowed to be heard. And yeah, the temple doors for my course are now officially open. I'm so excited. The Wyld Well Within is it's going to start in a few weeks. So I'm working with another beautiful priestess, womb witch, Anna, who has also been in this process, and she's a singer songwriter and also an amazing poet. So she's in the process of launching an EP with spoken word poetry. So we both have this big connection of like body, feminine work, and launching into voice, literal vocal activation. So yeah, our course is all about that. It's going through these channels. It's getting you back in touch with the wildness within, so that it can flow through your voice and come out in your message for the world and your song and whatever that is. So that's what I do now. And I wanted to mention one quick thing about what you were saying earlier. Like you were saying you were training your voice so it was sounding kind of breathy, right? Sometimes, but it wasn't feeling like it was its full wildness. And I think sometimes, well, music industry for sure, and culture and everything you hear on the radio, that's one of the things that keeps our voices not free. I think most is feeling like we're not allowed to express our raw, authentic voice. And if we do, it has to be one genre, right? It has to be country, has to be spiritual, has to be breathy, has to be whatever it is. And none of us are any of one thing, right? And women all the time are taught to, you have to be one thing, you have to be marketable, you have to be whatever. And I think that is what keeps our voices trapped, really. And when we can allow to just be like, what wants to come through my voice, let it come through, that's when I think our full expression can come into it. And if you want to do a more like breathy light song, if that's what you're feeling that day, that's okay. But if you want to feel more powerful that another day, that is okay too. And I think learning to make space for both of that all of that in your life is what gives you back power to free your voice fully. That release of having to fit into a certain box with it.
That's exactly what's happening to me. That's exactly what's happening to me is that, I'm allowing also this voice to do different things that are like outside of the style of the music that I sing. It's interesting. But, the thing about sound and sound healing, and so just like how I was talking about, with the sound bowl, the sound, they make these bowls that resonate with the different chakras. So there's like a different vibration for the different chakras, and the idea of that. And this is like when you're laying down at a sound bath, that's what they're doing, is that when this is resonating, it's resonating inside of your body. And so anytime anything is vibrating, you're releasing like what is stuck. So if you're moving energy, you're releasing what is stuck. so it's also something else that is vibrating the same frequency, right? It's coming in, like this energy, this frequency, this vibration is coming in, and then it's causing vibration to happen, and it's like causing things to release. So even like what I was saying about singing music that I don't maybe really want to sing, I have a lot of resistance to sound, hitting certain sounds and notes and things where I don't want, like how I identify with myself or whatever. Like, I don't want me to be doing that. I don't want anybody to hear me making that sound, which is like, this is ridiculous in its own, way, but that's, ways in like which, I trap and separate and like, I'm not like in my full voice. And so even just going into these places and making these certain sounds, I feel like I maybe even have done this with you. I've done some work with people where we're sitting in circle and we are making like ugly sounds. Like we're making all of these crazy from high to low and growling and barking and like all of this weird stuff. And the point of that is to like release and to move the energy, and the energy the sound, then the vibration that you're making will move like, inside of your body. And it's like, you might have something that's like really intense, that's like stored over here in this part of your body, that is not going to be released by just singing something like soft and pretty. It's not. That's not the frequency vibration that is required for like the movement and the change to happen over there. So I'm someone who it's been really hard, especially in my youth, for me to like get into doing that kind of thing. But the older I get, the more I'm like, it doesn't fucking matter. Like these ideas that we have, that we hold on to, and things that we're connected to, and really it's all for safety, right? Like even the way that we identify. And so of course, like if you write your own music and you're trying to market yourself, like you need to find your niche. You need to be niched out, like your colors need to match, like your branding, all this stuff, because people want to receive it that way, because we've been trained. And so people are like, okay, I see what it is that she's doing, and like I can take it that way. I definitely make albums. I make two totally different styles of music. I have two different channels. And I used to try to separate those things into different projects and wanted to separate them into different albums. But eventually it was just too much. Like I've had a hard enough time finding people to play just in one project that, if you have any of my albums, you know what I'm talking about. There's like this witchy, moody stuff. And then there's like these like really pretty love songs, and I just put them all together at the same show, at the same album, at the same sound bath, because they're coming out of me. But that was really hard for me. That was really hard for me to do that. It was initially really hard for me to blend my business with my music. And it's been the best thing ever. It's almost like, okay, finally, why did you take so long? And to somebody else, it might seem like it makes sense. It's like, your music is so spiritual. You have spiritual business. Like, what is the problem with like, blending the two of these? But for me, the music was very much like my shadow self, like the things that hurt, whatever kind of emotion I was holding inside, that I was like really private about. That was very different than the very like shiny, like, bright, loud version of myself that was, the way that everybody like in person knew me. So anyway, it's all part of personal integration, but accepting ourselves.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you merged them. I feel like that's so inspirational for me, because that's kind of like what I'm doing and what I envision it all happening, because I think we're taught, like marketing and business and stuff, that we have to separate in order to sell things. We have to, because people don't understand when like there's too much going on, right? So just be a musician, or just be a coach, or just be whatever. But I think more and more these days, people are craving authenticity, and what they're wanting is to see it all, right? To see you sing your song, that your heartbreak about a boy, and sing your shamanic song, and sing your, whatever ethereal spiritual song in there too. Like there's so many. I think when we can show the multi-dimensional sides of ourselves and kind of get rid of the box, that then I think we can really start to just open up to more possibility. I think that's the new paradigm that we're entering. I truly feel like we're shedding old paradigm with music industry of like needing to be signed by a record label, needing to market this, needing to market that. I think we're leaving that behind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaving it behind.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, I've written this album, and yes, some songs sound super sad, and some songs sound angry, and some sound folksy, and some sound spiritual. And they are all part of this past journey for me. They all represent me in these past couple years. And it's important to me that they're all on the same album. It's important to me that they're all on the same show. So I am like, well, people are just going to have to get on board. We're seeing all sides of me because I'm sick of not showing these different parts of me. I'm sick of not being free to express all these parts of me and express those different parts of your voice too, right? Like you were saying, you're getting comfortable doing these different things with your voice, getting comfortable doing the ugly, doing songs that are maybe outside your comfort zone. I am a huge proponent of musical theater as a healer. I love musical theater. It's not everyone's jam, but when you can truly get into a character that is maybe something so far out of your comfort zone or so far from your life, that is, you can really start to get some things moving within you. You can really use that as a momentum to release, to feel, to touch others' hearts. And so sometimes it's not always about fitting in the box. It's about expanding what your voice can truly do and showing that and using it in a healthy way. Sometimes these ways that we're taught, like if you were supposed to, there's all these songs out there where yes, women are sounding very breathy. Sometimes that's not the healthiest way to use your voice. So retraining our ears, retraining our minds, and understanding how to use your voice and your body in a healthy way to express all of it.
To be fully expressed. I mean, what could feel better than that? I think we're definitely in time for that. We're definitely in a time of shedding labels, but you can see how we're just kind of trained to like have a label, to be identified as this or that, because as soon as we're letting go of one, it's because we're trying to grab onto another. And I think that the thing that is like ultimately happening with all of us here now at this time is like, it's letting go of that. And it's kind of a process to let go, but letting go of that so that we can be more fluid, and in that way, like be fully in acceptance and be able to be fully honest and fully present with like who you are and how you are right now, and fully experience all of that, and then move on to the next. Because if we don't do that, and you're like because I'm just having that experience right now, I'm like, what am I holding on to? Like holding stuff in here, that is from, my past. Like, how does that even apply to right now? But, that's the shadow work. And we're always going to have stuff like that coming up. But I really love this idea of being fully expressed and like fully using the body and fully using the instrument and fully using the mind and just being able to like show up and be fearless. I was saying to you, before we went live, like acting, that is not like a calling of mine. Like I do not want to be performing. And that was a hard thing for me when I started singing. I don't want to be performing. I don't want to be a different character. I have a hard time wearing color because it does that thing to me. Like there's certain colors that I will wear and I will only wear those colors. And I kind of often find myself back in black because it just, it is like I can identify with that. Like that's clear to me. But like I put on something else that's vibrating differently or whatever, and it's messing up my thing. And I'm like, I need it to be, really focused. I need it to be, clear to myself because that's who I am. And so I think this whole exploration of the voice is just, it's a big one. It's a big one.
It's fascinating. We all have a rainbow of voice, and that's just like we have a rainbow of different looks, rainbow of different personalities. Our voice is a rainbow as well. And it sounds different, and it is different day to day. Some days I sing and I don't like how I sound. Some days I sing and I love how I sound. And some days I sing and I sound powerful. And some days I sing and it's a little softer and quieter, like you were saying. And that's so interesting. You were saying like acting is so not what you were doing. And I've had resistance to that at points in my life, but I actually really do love acting, and I love embodying characters. And it's almost, sometimes it's so fun to just try them on, and it kind of almost roots me back in myself. I think when you can go outside yourself and be like, I'm gonna try this on, I'm gonna try this voice on, I'm gonna try this character on, I'm gonna try whatever on, and maybe it's not you, like maybe it's not, but recognizing that and then coming back to yourself afterwards, rather than getting lost in it. You know, we see so many things of like people getting lost in their performance or lost in the highs of that.
Love it.
You know,
yeah.
But when you come back to yourself, when you can use performance as a tool and not as a drug, then you can come back to yourself and you can take the healing back into your reality. Because we're not performing 24/7, right? We perform for a couple hours a week or whatever. But we have to learn to live in both worlds, right? The performer, the audience, the teacher, the coach, the mentor. We're all of it, right? We're not just on stage.
This is true. Well, I'm trying to make some space for, I'm like, okay, so I'm going to take some performance classes. I'm going to take movement classes because I'm, you know, acting. Maybe I'll come on here and share about it when I go through it. Like, that's just going to be like a super difficult thing for me. But I do want to release. I want to be free, and I want to like release like fears and insecurities that I have about everything, really.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
here,
acting is vulnerable. It's one of the most vulnerable things you can do, I think.
Yeah. Well, and you do it in your singing, like it's in there, like when you, the videos that I see that you know, put out, that I'm just always like, wow. So good work, like so inspiring. I'm so excited for you. I'm so happy for you. It's just amazing to experience you. And, you know, it's contagious and it's effective. And I'm totally, you know, I feel it. And it's awesome for me to experience like your freedom and your freeiness and your wildness. Tell everybody out loud how they can find you, because I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes. So whether you're watching it, if you're watching it on Facebook or YouTube, or you're listening to the podcast, I will put all of this information. It's always updated. I'll put all this information in the place where you go to look for it so that you can find her. But just so that we have it, like we can hear, how do we find you and see what it is that you're offering?
Yes, come and find me. On Instagram, you can find me at Wyld Woman Voices. And that's also my TikTok, Wyld Woman Voices. And that's my website, wyldwomanvoices.com. So that's where you can find me. Yeah, feel free to send me a message, an email, just telling me your voice story. I love connecting with women and just hearing about what's been going on for them with their voice, whether we continue the journey or not. I just love collecting stories of women and really recognizing that we're all on this journey together. And like I said, the doors to my course are open. Anna and I will be starting in a few weeks. So if you have questions about the wild well within, then yeah, I would love to answer them and chat with you some more about the work that we'll be doing very soon.
Ooh, I want you to have retreat. I want you to have like in-person retreat. I want you to have festival. I want you to have because I want to come. I want to come and like participate into this. I think
we're gonna co-facilitate. We're gonna do it together.
Yeah, I would love to. And you know, I think this is like a movement. You know, this is really like a huge offering for people, and a really like amazing and super fun experience, but like just leaving so much fear behind and like ultimately like empowering.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I want all those things too. I'm so excited so excited for the pandemic to lift and to perform it live more and have concerts where I get audience singing also. That's one of my goals. And yes, we're holding a retreat is definitely, it's in the cards. I know it will happen the next year or two.
I'm studying all this music theory and learning how to write 4-part harmony because I want my priestess witch choir. I want to be able to write all of this music and like teach it to everyone. And I want to do these like kind of like travel and do retreats at places where, you know, it's like a couple days of experience and there's like a performance at the end. It's super fun, right?
Mm-hmm. That sounds awesome. I want to be part of the witch choir.
Yes. You know, because it's just something that I touched on just a little bit in the beginning, but we've talked, you know, it's something I write about. It's something that we've definitely talked about, the witch wound, you know, and how women have been silenced and things like that. I think there's a lot of us that are coming in with past, not just like what we've experienced in this time that is silencing us, but past life, you know, women were to be seen and not heard. There's definitely religions where women are not allowed to play music. Women aren't supposed to play didgeridoos. Women, you know, aren't supposed to be singing. Women aren't supposed to be leading ceremony. So this activation for people is also like giving that back for people, kind of carrying that. Yeah, it's a big gift, you know. It's a big gift. And I'm someone who I would always sing only for my brother when I was little. I would stand off to the side and I'd sing somewhere over the rainbow or whatever. And so I would allow my mom to be around, but I wouldn't sing for anyone except for my brother. Like, especially when I started like getting to be able to really use my voice and like growl and like, you know, do all these really cool things. I would just do it for him and I'd be like, oh, I'm just kidding. You know, and he was my younger brother. We still is, but he'd just be like, Jamie, you know, you should be a singer. And I was like, no, you know, it's only for me. I would never, you know, admit to, you know, that being something that I wanted to do. And, oh, I forget where I was going with it, but well, part of me could have just gone my whole life without ever doing it because of like fear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a huge life changer when you just like, when you do the things that you want to do that you're afraid to do, when you use your voice, when you let your instrument heal you, it's huge. So I just honor you for the work that you're doing. And I'm just said it a million times, but I'm so excited, and I'm so excited to get together and do some work with you in the future. Thank you so much for coming here and having this fun conversation with me.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun to talk about freeing the voice. And yeah, we're on the path and we are giving the gift back to women, and we are really truly healing that deep wound, which goes far beyond our lives, but into our past lives and ancestral and all of that. And we have the gift to be able to do that right now. So
yeah, we just have to step in.
You just have to step in. You just have to face it, and like you have to realize, wow, if you want to do it, you can do it. And what a gift that is, that we live in an age and a country and this time where we can do it, even though it may seem like we cannot, but you actually can.
Well, that's such an awesome place to leave us. Thank you so much. Blessed be, sister, and blessings on all of your work with your voice and all of the students that come and work with you. I'm so excited for you and all of them.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.